Well, certain contract workers for Facebook are being diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. It's related to what they do for the company. In an article for The Verge, Casey Newton chronicles the working conditions of Facebook's human content reviewers. It includes how some even say that they fear for their lives at the company's worst performing content moderation site in North America. Well, Casey Newton joins me now. He's the Silicon Valley editor for The Verge. Casey, I have to say, first off, your reporting has been, I can't stop reading it because you really stayed on top of this story. But, you know, you spoke to 3 of these former moderators. Give me a sense of what they're complaining about when it comes to their working conditions.
Sure. Well, I think it's sort of 2 things. One is when they're doing the job, they're working in some pretty awful conditions, filthy restrooms, finding very gross things all over the office, sexual harassment in the office, worrying about threats from coworkers. And then after they leave the job, because of the job that they're doing where they're seeing so much graphic and violent content, they're being haunted by those images months or even more than a year after they've left. And so one of the folks that I spoke with in Tampa and many others I've spoken with along the way have been diagnosed with PTSD and related conditions.
I mean, you think of PTSD as something in a war zone. You don't think of it as an office in Tampa, Florida.
That's right. But, you know, you think about what it must be like to sort of, you know, you're reviewing just this steady stream of content. You're almost like teleporting from crime scene to crime scene to crime scene. And I think that does kind of add up after a while.
Now, this wasn't Facebook directly. This was a company that was contracted by Facebook. So I'm curious what Facebook is saying at all about this.
Yeah, so what they're saying is that they want to get better over time. They sort of trust their partners to build systems to support their workers. They do hold them to certain standards, and they have, you know, plans, which I could talk more about, that they want to do in the future. But, you know, the fact is right now, at least at some of these sites, there are a lot of workers who are struggling.
I want to actually play for you part of an interview that you did with one of the former moderators. It's an example of what he saw. But first, I do want to let our viewers know that the content you're about to see and hear might be disturbing.
It was a video in a different language, and it was these 2 teenagers, and they came across an iguana on the street. And one of the kids grabbed the iguana by the tail, and they started to smash the iguana onto the ground, and you could just hear the iguana screaming.
I mean, he looks disturbed by that. You can just see it's still painful. Did you speak to mental health experts at all?
Well, my understanding of the research is that anyone who is exposed to what they might call vicarious trauma is liable to have these sort of effects, right? Social workers can feel these effects. And so it's definitely something that these moderators are struggling with.
When you talk about sort of content and what these moderators put out and decide not to put out, what do they tell you about their job and about sort of deciding that?
So their job is to apply a set of policies that are public. You can go read them right now if you wanted. But what they tell me that the real issue is that these policies change almost every day. And so a piece of content that should be taken down tomorrow might need to stay up the day after and might need to come down again the day after that. It makes it very hard for them to hit this 98% accuracy target that Facebook has set for them. You can get fired from this job for missing even a handful of questions a week.
Wow. And is there a way to gauge that? They look at the numbers to see if
Yeah, so what they do is every decision they make, they have auditors that will come in and audit a subset of
Wow.
those decisions. And then if the auditor disagrees with them, all of a sudden the moderator can be in trouble.
And that criteria changes, you say, from day to day as well.
Almost every single day.
Wow, that's remarkable. You know, you write, Facebook executives have maintained that the working conditions described to you by dozens of contractors do not accurately reflect the daily lives of the majority of its workers. Do you buy that?
Oh, it's so hard to say. I do believe that I have talked to workers at maybe some of the worst sites that Facebook has, and I do believe there are probably some sites where they're doing it better and maybe even well. But I'll tell you, almost every single moderator who's contacted me, and by this point I've heard of dozens, almost all of them feel like they have been changed permanently by doing this job.
The bottom line, though, is anything really going to change for these folks?
There are 2 things that I think would really help them that Facebook says that they want to do. One is they want to do a better job screening people up front. And just, I think, by asking people about their mental health history, making sure they're really well suited to doing this, that would help. And then the second thing is providing counseling after they leave the job. So whatever reason you leave, give that person counseling. If Facebook can do that, they can raise standards for contractors across the industry.
It's mental health. It always comes down to so much on mental health. Casey Newton, thank you very much for bringing us this story. We appreciate your time.
My pleasure.